Back in Paul Ryan yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday, rolled out his anti-poverty program. And his anti-poverty program is the typical Republican anti-poverty program. Block grant money to the states so that, governors in states that have a lot of poverty can, basically play with the money however they want. They don't have to give it to the poor people. Number one. Number two, cut benefits, cut Social Security benefits, cut other benefits for working poor people. Number three, put work requirements really rigid, more offensive than the so-called welfare reform back in the 90s, work requirements in there. Those rules, by the way, require you to have a job within 5 years at the federal levels, but allow states to dial it all the way down to 1 year, which several states have done, run by conservatives. So Paul Ryan basically, is a hustle. That's what the Republicans do, is a hustle. It's a scam. Oh, we're going to solve poverty by making people more poor, or at least poor people poorer. We're not going to make billionaires poorer. We're not going to make the top 1% poorer. We're not going to make people who make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, even $100,000, even $70,000 a year. We're not going to make them poorer. We're going to make people making under $50,000 a year a lot poorer. That's the Republican scam. Transfer the wealth of the American working class up to the top 1%. They've been doing it for 35 years. There's been a $17 trillion transfer of wealth from working people to the billionaire class. This is no secret. Except that the Republicans keep dressing this stuff up. It's like, let's dial back the rules for polluters and call it the Clean Air Initiative or the Clean Skies Initiative. Remember this? So, anyhow, one of the problems with poverty is that children in poverty tend to do more poorly than children who are not in poverty as they're growing up as adults. And, there's been a lot of discussion over the years about why that is. Why is it that poor people are more likely to produce poor children and poor families produce poor children? And obviously that debate got racialized, in this country hundreds of years ago and continues to be to this day. With all these theories about, that the founder, Jefferson, writing in his personal notes about, the inferiority of African Americans. That kind of stuff was used to rationalize not just the acceptance of poverty, but the promotion of poverty and even slavery. But there is this real problem that poor families produce children that don't do as well as adults, even when they're given a lot of the same opportunities. And so the question is, why? And, one of the more common theories was that, poor families, mom and dad are working all the time, or maybe there's only one parent there, and so the kids don't spend so much time with them. They don't have as good a vocabulary as a result of that. They're not exposed to as many words. They watch TV too much. There's been the food isn't as good. All those things are true, but there's a new study here out of the University of Buffalo on childhood development that's astonishing. It goes back to, in the late 60s, this Roberto Ferdman in today's Washington Post writing about this. The article is, there's a big problem with one of the most popular assumptions about the poor. And I'm going to tie this back into Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, all this stuff in just a second. Back in the 60s, this guy by the name of Walter Mischel, who's a researcher at Stanford, invited a couple hundred kids to participate in a game in which they were given a choice. You could either get one marshmallow right now, or if you can wait an hour, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. And some of the kids could not wait, and they just said, I'll take the one right now. And other kids said, I'll wait. Now, what's interesting is this study was done back in the 60s, and they kept track of who these kids were. And they just went back and looked at them. Now, 50 years later. What happened to those kids? The ones who took the marshmallow immediately have poorer life outcomes than the ones who said, I'll wait an hour and take 2 marshmallows. Now, there's a certain amount of logic to this. I mean, people tend to do better in life if they can delay gratification, if they're not impulsive, or if they're less impulsive. And, you know, I've written books about this. This is the whole ADD thing, is people with ADD have a hard time delaying gratification and tend to be impulsive. But it turns out that there's actually a reason for this that has to do with poverty. And it's not that the poor kids don't want to delay gratification. It's not even that they haven't been taught to delay gratification. In many cases, their parents tried very hard to teach them to delay gratification, even if the gratification is, you know, talking back to somebody or, you know, whatever. But as one of the researchers here that put this thing together, Melissa Sturge-Apple, professor of psychology at the University of Buffalo, who studies child development, she told Roberto Ferdman for this article in today's Washington Post, when resources are low and scarce, the rational decision is to take the immediate benefit and discount the future gain. When children are faced with economic uncertainty, impoverished conditions, not knowing where the next meal is coming from, etc., they may be better off if they take what's in front of them. Now, I would submit to you, first of all, that's brilliant. And what it says is that Lyndon Johnson's approach to poverty, which was kind of based on Will Rogers, you know, what's unique about poor people? They're poor. And Lyndon Johnson's approach to poverty with the Great Society was, well, if they're poor, we'll fix that by giving them money. And sure enough, you know, he cut poverty in half in about a decade. And then, of course, you know, Reagan came along, and now we're back where we were. But the point is that decision-making process that gets wired into us, not as a result of having been born into a poor family, but as a result of literally being in poverty. That, you know, I'm going to take that marshmallow right now because the 2 marshmallows you're telling me if I wait an hour for, I'm not sure they'll be there. Because when you're in poverty, I mean, real poverty, when you're really struggling, when you're working 3 jobs, you just have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring. And there's no safety net to catch you. So it's not immediate gratification in a negative way. It's a positive survival strategy. So then along comes Donald Trump. And he says, I'm going to give you immediate gratification. Elect me, you're going to see the best trade deals you ever saw. Elect me, and you're going to see the best, you know, wages you ever saw. Elect me, and we're going to bring all those factories back to the United States. Elect me, and you know, and people are like, and then, you know, the Democrats come along and they say, well, you know, we have to be rational about this. We need to be thoughtful about this. It's going to require some steps. We're going to have to figure out how to, you know, and which is all true. But it's not how you run against a guy who's a demagogue. It's not how you run against a guy who is the master of the bumper sticker and the media. When resources are low or scarce, the rational decision is to take immediate benefit and discount future gains, says Melissa Sturge-Apple. She is so right. And it applies to this election.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It also tells us that Lyndon Johnson was right about poverty. And if you want to solve poverty, give poor people some money. We'll be back.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.